Welcome to this week's episode of Mysterious Cryptids.
So hello listener, welcome back to another episode of Mysterious Cryptids. I hope you're well, hope you had a good week. I hope you enjoyed your time off, if you had any time off, you had the weekend off maybe. Hope you had a good week. My week's been a bit slower. We're basically, at this moment in time, we're moving office. So I had a home office, a home studio type thing. And I've kind of I've just outgrown it, and it's too small. I need an actual office. There's other aspects that I do. I don't just do the podcast and recording and stuff. I do other aspects of like business and what have you. So I just need a bigger office. So that's been my week. My week has been pretty much just moving. And it's probably one of the most boring, painful jobs I have ever had to do. It's just so, I hate moving. So I hope your week's been a bit better. I hope you've had a fascinating week. Have you done any research this week? Have you been out in the field possibly? We've still got like a few expeditions booked for this year, including our big one, which is to America. We're going to, I mentioned before, we're going to Pennsylvania to go cryptid hunting, well, Bigfoot hunting, should I say, with the BFRO, which is really exciting. I'm really excited for that. I'm really looking forward to that. It's something I'm fascinated by, obviously, because I'm, kind of podcast that I do, so it's a big part of my life. It's something I'm fascinated with. We are kind of going to talk about, today we're talking about hominins. Possible hominid, I think I'm saying that right, and Bigfoot's little cousin, basically, which is the orangpendek, is what we're talking about today. Because I think a lot of people seem to think that Bigfoot is this one thing, this one creature, just one. There's not like family units of them, or like a collection of thousands of them, or different variations of them around the world. There's just a Bigfoot, and he's just running around the Pacific Northwest of America, and it's whether it's potluck whether you see him or not. And I don't think that's the case. I think very much that Bigfoot is probably some kind of a throwback to, I think he's very much a real thing. So I think he's very much a biological thing. I don't think he's paranormal or rooted in aliens or UFOs, or I think he's 100% a very real biological thing. And I think the variations, if you like, of what Bigfoot is, like the other offshoots of the family, like orangpendek, the ubugogo, the yering, the yowie, even the British Bigfoot sightings and stuff. I think whether we have whether or not there's a Bigfoot type creature here or not, I think these creatures being real, I think they're very much probably they're very rooted in biology. I think they are there's either some kind of ape or some kind of a cross between an ape and a human, somewhere in between. There's something in between. So that's why I use the word hominin. I use the word hominin because it kind of describes that better than ape man or wild man. I think they are some kind of a hominin, which same family as us and the other great apes, like gorillas and chimps and everything else. And I think that's very much what they are. I think they are very, very biological, very real, and so today we're talking about the orangpendek.
Mysterious Cryptids, the show that investigates the strange world of cryptids.
So basically, if you've never heard of the orangpendek, he's basically Bigfoot's little cousin. And so I'll give you a bit of the history about where he's from, and some stories from behind the tales of it. So deep within the dense rainforest of Sumatra, there is a creature that allegedly roams in the shadows, captivating the imaginations of the locals and enticing the curiosity of adventurers. From around the globe, known as the orangpendek, this mysterious ape-like creature has been a subject of fascination and skepticism alike. In the style of an unsolved mystery, we will delve into the legends, eyewitness accounts, and scientific investigations surrounding this elusive creature. To start off about the orangpendek, it is said that this creature inhabits the dense forest of Sumatra, which is very thick forest. I mean, you know, you're talking end of the world kind of environments. You know, these environments are very much middle of nowhere, very, very unexplored, right? Very, very, very unexplored. And the locals have claimed to have seen these things for centuries. You know, to the point where they have rituals to try and keep them away. They tell their children and youngsters not to go out at night because, you know, the orangpendek will basically get them and eat them. They will eat their little. So they basically tell them to stay in. The lore of the orangpendek dates back centuries, as mentioned, among the indigenous people of Sumatra. Translated basically to short person or little man in Indonesian, the creature is commonly described as a small bipedal primate standing around 4 to 5 foot tall, covered in short, dark fur. Locals believe it is highly intelligent, being capable of living in harmony with nature and possessing supernatural abilities. So the eyewitness accounts over the years are numerous and have surfaced again and again and again, adding fuel to the mystery surrounding the orangpendek. These encounters often occur in the remote regions of Sumatra, where the creature is said to reside. Witnesses report seeing a creature matching the orangpendek's description, often caught off guard while trekking through the dense jungles of Sumatra. One such account comes from Debbie Marta, an Englishwoman who encountered the creature in 1994 while conducting research in one of their famous national parks. Debbie allegedly came face to face with the orangpendek. She described it as a small, upright primate, covered in dark fur, possessing human-like facial features. Despite her extensive experience with primates, she was unable to identify the creature as any species that she knew of. Scientific investigations in an effort to shed light on the orangpendek, basically various scientific expeditions over the years have been launched, and these expeditions aim to gather concrete evidence of the creature's existence, such as photographs, footprints and DNA samples. However, despite the enthusiasm and dedication of these researchers, concrete evidence has remained elusive. Having said that, there has been quite a lot of evidence to come out of the area. In the case of footprints, DNA samples, eyewitness accounts, and some photographs. There was actually a few years ago, there was a video that was captured by they were like dirt bikes, you know, people on dirt bikes going across these mountain trails, and you could tell that they were just going about the day with like a bike camera, and they were going through the trails, and it was quite thick and wooded, and then all of a sudden this orange ape-like thing on 2 legs came running past them, crossed their path, and for about 3 to 5 seconds you could quite easily see on the video what this thing was, right? You could quite easily see it, and it was very human-like in the sense of it was bipedal. It moved very human-like, but it was very ape-like as well. But it was not an orangutan. It was not a chimp or any kind of monkey that we know of. It was something different, and it did appear to have some kind of a spear or a stick or something in its hand. I don't know if it was a weapon. I won't go that far, but it was definitely a tool of some kind. Was it, you know, I don't know whether it was to help him walk or navigate through the thick brush, I don't know, but it was definitely something he was using to, you know, as an extension of his being. And that is by far, probably off top of my head, that is in the top 3 like evidence of these hominins existing. Obviously you've got the Patty film, you know, you've got the Bob Gimlin and Roger Patterson film of their Patty Bigfoot back in the day, and you've you've got that, and that's kind of like one of the gold standards for Bigfoots and Bigfoot sightings and stuff. But this video was, it was fascinating and fantastic in its own right. If you've never seen it, I would recommend going to look on YouTube. It's everywhere. This video got shared everywhere, and it's fascinating. It's really fascinating, and it looks 100% real. It looks 100% authentic, and it looks like it shows an orangpendek. So to say that there is no concrete evidence, I think when skeptics say that, they're referring to no body, is what they mean. They have no body. They have no like forensic evidence to the sense of here it is lying on a slab. You know what I mean? But yes, there is footprints. Yes, there's handprints. Yes, there's photographs. Yes, there's videos. I would count all that as evidence. You know, I would count all that as evidence, and not even circumstantial evidence. This is physical evidence. I would say circumstantial evidence is obviously eyewitness accounts. You know, these are stories. These are just stories. And so you have to take them at the sense that they are just stories. You believe the witnesses, because I don't like to think that everyone's out there just lying about these things. But yeah, you would cast that as circumstantial evidence, in scientifically speaking. But footprints, DNA samples, you know, photos and videos of these creatures is absolutely 100% not circumstantial evidence. 100% is actual physical evidence, and it should be treated so as if it is. Moving on though, one of the notable scientific investigations was carried out by Dr. Carl Schuker, a cryptozoologist, and his team in 2001. Although they failed to obtain any visual evidence, they did manage to capture several mysterious footprints. These prints displayed anatomical features distinct from any known primates, sparking further intrigue and speculation within the scientific community. The skeptic's perspective, however, as with any unsolved mystery, they are those who remain very sceptical of the orangpendek's existence. Skeptics argue that the sightings and the evidence can be attributed to misidentifications, hoaxes, or even the presence of unknown animals such as gibbons or small primates. You see, now that's where I would disagree. That's where I would disagree. That's where I separate from the argument of, you know, it's misidentification or hoaxes. Because as a scientist, and as speaking scientifically, I mean, you know, you can only tackle something scientifically by just taking it head on. So you get basically presented with the evidence, you get presented with the numbers, the figures, whatever it's scientific endeavour you're doing, and then you make your conclusion of what it could possibly be, what it might be, what it's not. Yeah. And that's kind of what you do. And you can only do that with empirical evidence. You can only do that with that. So, to say that they're misidentifications or they're hoaxes is to completely go against the scientific method. That is to completely go against it. Because you have to dismiss everything. You have to dismiss everything that is being presented to you in the sense of footprints or unknown DNA or video or photo evidence. You have to dismiss all of that to come up with the idea that it's either misidentification or hoaxes, which isn't scientific in itself. If you're being presented with evidence or data, if you're being presented with this and you point blank ignore it to the point where you just dismiss it. Nah, you're wrong. No, it's hoaxes. No, that can't exist. That doesn't exist. And no, you're wrong. Yeah? If you're doing that, then you're not being scientific. You're not. Because you're completely excluding everything that people are bringing to the table and saying this, and this. You're completely having to exclude all of it and really kind of come up with outlandish things like, again, mentioning the Patty film earlier. You've got to kind of come up with the idea that, you know, these decades ago, the idea that that's somebody in a suit, is ridiculous. If you look at the films that Hollywood were making at the time that video came out, right? There was not the technology. There wasn't the technology to make it look as convincing and as real as it was. And as it is, sorry. There was not the technology. If you go back to the original Planet of the Apes films and stuff like that, you know, I'm trying to think of like comparisons that you could possibly say. It's terrible. It's terrible. Hollywood has come a long way since then, but back in them days, it was not good. These monsters and these things in Hollywood pictures look dated. They look terrible. They look fake. Whereas Patty looks very, very convincing. It looks very convincing, and I just don't think. And even if you did possess the technology to do it, and you could have pulled it off, which I absolutely don't think was available at the time, but you could pull it off. Who can afford it? You'd be talking about a suit that is £100,000, in cost or more. These suits cost a fortune to make them look, authentic. And you're talking about makeup artists, and you're talking about, proper videographers, and you're talking about a team of people. So not just two people that got the video. You're talking about an industry of people that would all have to be sworn to silence in order to pull off this hoax. It is ridiculous, and I think that the idea of saying that these are misidentifications or hoaxes is lazy. It is lazy science. It is science not being bothered to be able to say, actually, this does warrant more investigation. It does warrant more time spent on it. Actually, you know what? There is enough evidence or circumstantial evidence to warrant an investigation, and we need to tackle this open mind. It's so lazy of the scientific community to just say, no, you're wrong. We're not going to prove you wrong, but you're wrong anyway. And it is so lazy, and it makes my blood boil, because I used to be a part of this industry. I used to be in science. I used to work in labs, and I've been to university. I've done the education side of science, and I did environmental science and earth science. I've done it, and I even when I was doing it, it was painfully obvious that there was elements of it that was just lazy, and it's sad. It is sad, and I think to say that these things are hoaxes or misidentifications with no evidence of your own to say that these things are these things, I think it's outrageous. It's really outrageous. But basically, the skeptics, they emphasise the absence of concrete scientific evidence and the reliance anecdotal accounts. However, supporters of the orangpendek argue that the dense forests of Sumatra provide ample cover for such a creature to remain hidden. They believe that the orangpendek's intelligence and ability to adapt to its environment allow it to evade human detection effectively. Absolutely. I know loads of known creatures that everyone knows. Deer, owls. How many owls do you see? How many deers do you see? How many, if you live in the part of the world where tigers and lions and stuff are, how many of them do you see? You don't see many. You just don't. Because they don't want to be seen. Especially if they're apex predators, or if they're predators of any kind. They don't want to be seen. That's their whole shtick. Their whole shtick is to not be seen. Regardless of its existence, the legend of the orangpendek has played a crucial role in raising awareness about these fragile ecosystems of Sumatra. The creature has become a symbol for a conservation effort. Efforts to protect the rainforests of Sumatra ultimately benefit a wide array of fauna, including the critically endangered Sumatra orangutan, tigers and rhinos. Conservation organisations have recognised the importance of the orangpendek's legend in promoting environmental stewardship. By highlighting this mysterious cryptid's potential existence, they have been able to engage local communities and the international community and enthusiasts to prevent the destruction of these rainforests. As technology continues to advance, the search for the orangpendek enters a new phase. High-resolution cameras, drones and DNA analysis techniques offer renewed hope for the obtaining the conclusive evidence that scientists seem to need. It's quite sad to say that scientists will never be happy unless there's a body. And that's quite sad to say. It is quite sad. Because it means one of these things has to die, to be probed, to be experimented on after its death, before they will go, well, yeah, it is. And even then, they won't admit that they were wrong all the time, you know. And I've done this kind of work now. I've been fascinated with cryptozoology and the unknown and mysteries and stuff for many years now. And, you know, and I have at times, I've faced ridicule because, especially when I used to work in labs and stuff, I used to face ridicule quite a lot from colleagues that were like, why are you wasting your time with this? These things don't exist. This is that. And I could never get across to them that it's the fascination of not knowing that got me into science and the world of science to begin with. It's the fascination of not knowing what's out there, rather than knowing. And I think some science is, and some scientists don't like that. They don't like the fact that they don't know, and they like to have the idea that they know everything. And I think the idea of not knowing something scares them in some respects. It doesn't fit in with their understanding, and then when something doesn't fit in with your understanding, it questions everything you know and everything you thought you know. And I find it, I find it infuriating that it's just so easily dismissed. I find it really infuriating. And I have received quite a bit of criticism and ridicule from people that I know, saying that, you know, you're wasting your time with these things. But I do think probably not all the cryptids on this list that we're going to discuss over the many weeks and months, probably not all of them exist. And when I do some of them, I will say whether or not I think they exist. Or whether they're more rooted in folklore, or whether they're more rooted in myths and legends. I'll debunk the ones that I think need debunking, as well as talking about the ones that I think actually are or could be real. And I think the orangpendek makes that list. And I think it makes that list of ones that could be real. It has the habitat for it, it's remote enough. You know, these jungles are very, very untouched by anything, really, by any kind of outside influence. They're so thick. I mean, if you've ever been to a jungle or been to an area where a jungle is, you'll see you'll see how thick these things are. If you spend any time out in the woods in England or in America or Canada or wherever you live, if you spend any time out in the woods, you know how thick it is. I mean, you can be 50 yards away from something and not see it in the woods, because it's that dense, it's that thick. It's very easy to get lost in the woods, turned around, and before you know it, you're literally in the middle of nowhere. I've mentioned this before. You can be walking in the direction, any direction, out of a city in England, and you're in the middle of the countryside. It is literally, you're nowhere. And I think that's the case for most places, especially these places that have dense rainforest, these places that have, you know, like the Amazon, for instance, or the jungles of Sumatra, or the jungles of Indonesia. I think it's not unbelievable to think that these creatures exist. And a 4-5 foot ape-like creature running around the jungles of Sumatra, absolutely 100% could exist. 100%. So before we say our parting message, I wanted to quickly go over the conclusion. So the conclusion is, the legend of the orangpendek continues to captivate the imaginations of both locals and enthusiasts from around the world. While skeptics question the existence, the persistence of eyewitness accounts, and the dedication of scientific researchers keep the mystery alive. The journey to uncover the truth behind the orangpendek is a testament to our insatiable curiosity and our commitment to understanding the natural world. Whether the creature is a remnant of an undiscovered species or the product of folklore and misidentification. Its legend has been played out and is a crucial role in inspiring conservation efforts and raising awareness about the importance of preserving the rich biodiversity of the Sumatra's rainforest. So that pretty much wraps up what I wanted to talk about this week. And as always, these things are more of a chat between ourselves, and as always, I would love to know more and hear more stories from the audience. So if you wanted to contact us, you have had an encounter with these things, you know anything about these things, you ever had your own cryptid encounter, I want to hear from you, and we are and let's discuss this phenomena together. So if you ever want to contact me, it's info@robbray.net, or you can email the bcro@yahoo.com. But that does kind of wrap up this week's episode. As I said, I did want to touch upon the orangpendek this week. It's one of those, for me, one of those creatures, a bit like the ubogogo, which we'll touch upon again maybe on another week, because next week we'll be bringing part 2 of our Pendek Chase podcast, which is basically our expedition update on what we found, what we did, what evidence we found, where you can go see that evidence, etc, etc. So that's what we'll be doing next week. But this week I wanted to touch upon, because we kind of touched upon Bigfoot sightings here in the UK last week with the Pendek Chase, wild man and the dog man. But this week I wanted to touch upon the wild men of the greater world, if you like, because there is so many of them, and it's flabbergasting how many there is. There's so many of them. There's the orangpendek, there's the ubogogo, there's the yerin, there's the yowie, there's the British wild man, there's the European werewolf dogman type thing. There's the massive bipedal creatures of South America and Central America. There's the Bigfoot in the obviously North America. It just goes on and on and on, and it either everyone is wrong. I know I say this every week. Either everyone is wrong, everyone is lying, or it's hoaxes. And I find that impossible to believe. You have to make so many assumptions to get to that point. It's just ridiculous to think that it doesn't warrant more investigation. So every week we will be touching on a new topic. This week was the orangpendek. I firmly believe that these creatures can exist in the deep jungles of Sumatra. And you're not even talking about a massive creature like Bigfoot, which is 7 to 10 foot tall. You're talking about something that's 4 to 5 foot tall. So well, smaller than the actual Sasquatch and the Yetis and stuff like that. But yet probably a distant kind of relative to us and other apes and to the Sasquatches and stuff like that. It probably is some kind of a relative to it. And maybe it is some kind of a throwback from a time that's, long gone. But I think these warrant investigation. And I think if part of the investigation has to be just talking about these things. Just talking about them. Because I think it brings a light onto it. It shines a light onto it. So that's been this week's topic anyway, was the orangpendek. I would love to know if you have any information on the orangpendek. Is there anything that you think would be, show-worthy? We could discuss it in the future. We could talk about these things. Have you ever been to Sumatra and you have a story that you would like to, relay to us, and then we can, relate it to everyone else who listens? We would love to hear from you. If you want to email me, you can do. It's info@robbray.net, or you can email the BCRO, so it's the BCRO @yahoo.com. Feel free to message me, feel free to drop me a message. You can also find us on Facebook, which is the Cryptozoology Research Organisation. We also have a website, cryptidresearch.com. You can drop me a message on there as well. We also have a cool little database on there with sightings and, footprint evidence and all this and the other. There's quite a lot on there now. There's obviously, we're a small team, so it's adding it all in. People send us stuff and then we have to add it on. And so it's taking time, but, we are a small team. But yeah, if you want to get involved with the show, we would love to hear from you. If not, I'll just keep talking about things that interest me every week. Like this week, we've been talking about the orangpendek. I think next week is the part 2 of Canic Chase. We've got it planned. And then the week after that, we might talk about, I don't know, the Loch Ness Monster or whatever. We've got a few topics that are lined up for like the next 10 weeks. So it depends what's in the schedule. But yeah, we'll be talking about something else. And we would love to hear your input. We would love to hear what you think these creatures are and whether or not they exist or not. We would love to hear from you. So that's info@robbray.net or the bcro@yahoo.com if you want to contact the show. We do have planned as well over the next like 3 to 4 weeks. We've got a couple of guests that are coming on, that have agreed to coming on, including the brilliant Deborah Hatswell. She's coming on. She's a very prominent researcher in the UK and within the community itself. So yeah, it'll be really cool to have her on. It'll be really good to talk to her about her sighting that she had and the organisations that she's involved with. It'll be really cool to talk to her about that. That's coming up next few weeks. So yeah, I'm going to leave it there. If you want to contact the show, the emails, you can either email me directly or, like I say, you can email the actual organisation. It both comes to me anyway, but feel free to email me, info@robbray.net, or go to that website, cryptidresearch.com. So anyway, I'm going to leave that there. As always, thank you for being with us in this podcast, and me just, I suppose, talking to you about the things that fascinate me about cryptozoology. And I shall see you next time. Have a fantastic week, and I shall see you next time. Bye for now.
Why not advertise with us? Email thebcro@yahoo.com. That's all we have time for this week. Join us again next week.